Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerd Steve. Today I'm joined by Professor Dungeon Master from Dungeon Craft. How are you doing today?
Terrific, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm sure anybody watching probably knows who you are, but just in case there is someone who lives under a YouTube rock and is not familiar with Dungeon Craft, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So on YouTube, I'm Professor Dungeon Master at Dungeon Craft, and at Dungeon Craft, we show you how to run a better game of D&D and all tabletop role-playing games. And once in a while, I craft something too. That's the whole jam.
Is that how you got started crafting?
Yeah, I watched DM Scotty, who has since become a friend of mine, and DMG. And those guys, and I started really getting into the crafting. And my conception for the channel was, and why I called it Dungeon Craft, is I would do like 2 videos a month. One would be D&D advice, and one would be a crafting thing. And since that time, the crafting space has been, you got better crafters out there like tabletop witchcraft and black magic craft that are just like at a totally different level. And like my stuff, and I run out of ideas. You have to be very imaginative.
Yeah.
I do a craft a couple times a year, but mostly I do the D&D advice thing now.
It was really interesting to see Black Magic Craft blow up, because it was like the first YouTube channel that wasn't like, Critical Role, Matt Colville, to really explode into like super high numbers for subscribers. Because I believe like it predates like XP to level 3 and some of the animators, and then like XP to level 3 came along and like blew everything out of the water. But it was so crazy to see a D&D channel, do that well. And then not only is it a D&D channel, but it's a crafting channel. Like, it's super niche.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I'm happy to see Jeremy's success. He's got a video out today based on my ultimate dungeon terrain, which is that circular terrain, that pizza, the dungeon pizza.
Yeah. You can either serve your pizza on it or serve up some Deathbringer for your players.
Yeah, so he's got a video on that today, but he's a genius. Like he was able to take it to an entirely different level. And he was a contractor. And so like he knows how to get stuff done. It's a lot of work to do a crafting video, because you have to shoot all this footage, and you always shoot too much of the boring stuff. And then when you get everything together in the editing, room, you realize that you missed critical parts.
Oh, oops.
You're shooting all this footage in hours of footage to whittle it down. So it's great. He's a genius.
Yeah, I think we're having him on next week, and DM Scotty was last week.
Yeah, I saw that. He was on with Easy D6, which I wrote a blurb for.
Oh, nice.
RPG now, yeah, but love Easy D6. It's one of the books I got right here.
Have you had a chance to play it with DM Scotty?
Absolutely, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think it's the best D6 system I've ever played. And I'm very critical when it comes to just role-playing game systems.
Yeah.
And I just loved it.
Yeah, we had played it when he was still like kind of prototyping it, and it seemed like he wasn't sure if he wanted to turn it into a system and publish it or not still. And we had played, and I was like, this is a lot of fun. You should definitely publish this. And I think it's come a long way even since then.
Yeah, great game. It was. I also encouraged him. I was like, yeah, you got something here.
So you have Deathbringer that makes appearances on your show from time to time, or every episode. Who is Deathbringer, and where did Deathbringer come from?
Deathbringer came from, I think, the second episode. I have it's the second or third episode of Dungeon Craft where I talk about making characters. We want to make a party where everyone complements each other, not like, and you got to listen to the game master's concept, so if the game master's like, okay, I want to, run a game and it's Venice in 1500, and someone's like, oh, okay, I'm going to be a courtier, and then another character, I'm going to be a courtesan, and and then you got that guy coming in, and I'm Deathbringer, like, no matter what you want to run, they just want to be that guy that kills everything and doesn't fit into the group.
Yeah.
So someone said in the chat, Deathbringer is my spirit animal. And after that, I was like, oh, and people started going like, bring back Deathbringer. So that's why he appears on every show.
By popular demand.
Yeah, making fun of me usually. And he's got some that are coming up that are brutal on me.
Is Deathbringer modeled after any of the players that have appeared in your games?
He's a composite of like
that guy.
Yeah. That guy. He's a composite character.
So what convinced you to start doing Dungeon Craft?
There was a friend of mine, my friend Kerry, whom I always thank. I don't know if she's going to watch this, but she always makes sure that I thank her. She had suggested, like, I used to get bored in the summer if I wasn't working, and she suggested, you ought to have a YouTube channel about Dungeons and Dragons. And I said, I don't know anything about YouTube or cameras. And she says, no, it's easy. You just use your iPhone. And I said, okay, it's easy. Use my iPhone. She's one of those people that can convince you of things. And,
yeah.
And I was like, all right, it's, and so I started filming things. And then pretty soon my iPhone it's all filled up with stuff. It's not functioning anymore. I go to the Apple store and they say, if you want to have a YouTube channel, you can't put everything on it. It's filling up your iPhone. You got to get a computer. So I put it on a computer, and then that got filled up. And they're like, well, now you need an external hard drive. And one thing led to another. And pretty soon I was $6,000 in debt. And before I put out a video. And so I was like, at this point, and no one helped me. No one helped me at all. No one at all in my family. No one knew how to do any electronic. I learned how to do everything. And I just persisted because I was like, I can't lose $5,000 or $6,000 without putting out a video. So I just stuck with it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That definitely feels familiar though. So I mean, we did the same thing. Like our videos were shot on an iPhone with an external mic to start with. But we took it a step further. We took the videos off the iPhone and didn't leave them there. Because it will fill up if you don't. Videos take up a lot of space.
They do. They do. I got my own computer just for Dungeon Craft.
That makes sense. I mean, heck, you could even do a computer just for editing, right? And your video stuff, because just of all the space. Like, because I know, like, we shoot. I think the raw from our average video is like 90 gig. So because it's 3 cameras, so it adds up fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the plans for Dungeon Craft and Deathbringer? What does the future hold for us?
Well, this month I'm doing 2 episodes a week. Like I'm trying to upload multiple episodes a week. And Deathbringer is over here. We just crossed 90,000. So thank you to everybody who subscribes to Dungeon Craft. And the game Deathbringer is on Drive through RPG. This is the whole game. And you get this sheet too. So it's like 2 pages and it folds up. And so I'm working on Deathbringer, making it, expanding that world. And I have Deathbringer Deluxe on Patreon, which is my work in progress. That's like the whole, what may be eventually a book. And in addition to that, I got Eldritch Hack. The Eldritch Hack is rules like Cthulhu role playing. Like if you like Call of Cthulhu, but you think it takes too long to make a character and allocate all those skill points, you could sit down and make a character in 5 minutes. And you just want to play Call of Cthulhu, but once in a while. And it aligns, like Deathbringer aligns to 5e, Eldritch Hack aligns to Call of Cthulhu.
Okay, so does Eldritch Hack use that system? Just kind of, A rules light version.
Yeah, very rules light. I would say it's a different system, but the hit points are one of the key things. The hit points and damage aligns. So the sanity works a little bit different, and you use D20s instead. So it's super compatible though. So it was important to me that the hit points align, because that's, as game master, what I need. I need to know the hit points and the damage, because that determines how fast people are going to die. So we did that to make that align, and that's on drive through now as well.
So how often are you actually gaming?
Up to 5 times a week.
Oh, that's a lot of gaming.
I have 5 groups. And I'm playing tomorrow. I was supposed to play last night's Thursday, but they canceled. I was supposed to play Wednesday, but they canceled. So I have a lot of games. I play at school. There's a lot of games running at any given time. Once a week would be a light schedule.
So do you do like a D&D club at school or something?
I do. We do.
Nice.
It's a very small select group of students, and they all just graduated. So I think now I'm going to need a new one.
Yeah. So are you a GM in all of these games, or are you also playing?
Yes, I'm a GM. I will play occasionally. Like I played at Origins. I was a guest player at the Cthulhu Masters tournament. So
nice.
Occasionally people will invite me. And I played a Cthulhu game a couple months back. Probably 6 months back, which I'm going to talk about in an upcoming video. I made a couple of videos about my Cthulhu experiences. So I play as a player once in a while, but I'm mostly game master.
So is that by choice or happenstance?
Most of the people I know don't run D&D or any role-playing games. Like they're players. They're full players, and occasionally I'll do it. And I'm just I'm just a game snob. You know, like if it's new or something, like I'll want to play it. And but it's just like I actually get very fidgety when I play games. I tend to think they're not moving fast enough.
Yeah.
Player. So it's tough for me. And I always cooperate with the game master. Like I'm not the person that undermines them. But it's just like you got to have a really cool idea to grab me. One game I really want to play is, I think it's Kobolds Must Die. Have you heard of that game?
Oh yeah, well, Kobolds Must Die. That company's right in Philadelphia. It's kind of a local company.
They run games at conventions, and I hear them cheering at the table, and I'm like, okay, that I gotta play.
Yeah.
That I gotta play. All Kobolds Must Die is on my list. I want to play it as a player, and then, but it's like you got to get me like it's got to be high concept. It's got to be like really a cool idea for me to play as a player. Most of the time, I don't like it as much.
Okay. I know, a bunch of people like that. I know, like, even like DM Scotty is like, I rarely play. I usually am a GM because I'm a terrible player. I just rather, and I know it's fine. Like if you're self-aware and, and have the wherewithal. I tend to want to, if I'm playing, I want to run, and if I'm running, I want to play. So I'm just never happy, I guess.
I hear you.
Yeah. So is it all D&D, or you other games as well?
Well, I'll play tons of other stuff. Tomorrow I'm deciding, I'm writing a scenario now this afternoon after we wrap up that we'll be playing tomorrow. It's going to be a one shot, and we are probably going to use Dread.
Okay.
Which is a game I love. It's got the Jenga tower. I can't decide whether it's going to be Eldritch Hack or Dread. But I write the game first, and then I decide on a system.
Oh, that's interesting.
But I got...
so your players don't even know what they're playing?
No, they trust me. Like, I look at the text, and they're like, oh, that sounds cool. I just looked at the text, and they're like, what are we playing tomorrow? And I was like, I think it's going to be like a film noir-y thing. And immediately my player Maria wrote back, oh, cool.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and I'm like, all right, okay, so I'm gonna probably go with that. I listen to them, but right now, I just played some Easy D6 with DM Scotty. I played Mazes at Origins. Mazes is really cool. It's rules light, dungeon crawling, sword and sorcery, Farvardin, Grey Mouser kind of stuff. It's a really cool game. I'll be reviewing it soon.
Who puts out mazes?
Mazes is 9th level games.
Oh, that's also that they also put out All Kobolds Must Die.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. So
Yeah.
they're doing cool. Yeah, they're doing cool stuff.
A friend of mine did a board game from them. I think he did a card game called Set the Watch. I think he did it with them. Which is it's like basically it's a card game, but it's based off of being on watch or camping overnight, in a fantasy game, a D&D game.
That's cool. They seem like a cool company. Like they're doing neato things.
Yeah, I keep meaning to connect with them and just haven't. And like I said, they're probably like 30 minutes from where I live, and they're not too far from you. We should figure it out. See if we can't get them to run some Kobolds Must Die for us. Do a collab or something.
Oh, definitely. I love doing that.
Yeah. I know Ted's played that game a few times. I have not had the chance to play it yet.
Well, it seems magical. I mean, everyone's cheering. Like, that's what I want to play.
I just know you're supposed to yell Hal King Torg and chant that over and over again when you play. Oh, no. Or is it Kobolds Must Die, or is it Kobolds Ate My Baby?
Or maybe that's it. Kobolds Ate My Baby. Yeah, Kobolds Ate My Baby.
Yeah. All Kobolds Must Die. I think that's a different game. Maybe we have to make that game. In the one game that I had run, there was a scenario with kobolds, and that was the running joke was kobolds have the life expectancy of like a fruit fly every 3 days or so. So you said you're playing 5 different games. Are they all in person or some of them online?
One's online, the rest are in person. I have a group that I do with the local Unitarian church, and they have not opened up again.
Yeah.
So I do games via Zoom. I play with Scotty via Zoom. I'll play with I play with DMGs via Zoom. I'll play with Zoom if I have to.
Yeah.
I much prefer to play live. And the pandemic's been a really interesting experience. It's helped me learn a lot more about how to run games, and like the differences, like Zoom or Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds, whatever you're using, and in person. It's a different thing. There are different skill stacks for each.
Yeah. I mean, like everybody during the pandemic, we switched all of our games to online or virtual, and me and Ted, we just had different methods. Like, he eventually, because he's more of a terrain GM, so he eventually ended up setting up a second camera and laptop, and he would just zoom in his terrain, and then like have the minis there or whatever. And then we had to get over the awkward thing where we're all trying to point on the terrain to where we want our piece to go.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. It keeps you like, now you got this whole other bunch of problems that you have to contend with. That's what makes these games so fascinating.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. Like for me, I would just use maps and screen share, and like on Zoom, and just like you can write on the maps. So I would just kind of do that to give people kind of an idea what's going on. Or also I would use Dungeon Fog and make maps in there, and make like a very ghetto version of a VTT. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of VTTs. I mean, they're fine and all, but I feel like, for me anyway, it just takes away from how I play the game, experience the game.
For me as well, I understand the attraction. I mean, it allows me to play with. I played with DMG. He's in Australia. I can't be there. He can't be on the East Coast. So that's, there's certain things that only it can do. But the thing about a role-playing game that I've realized is it's communion. It's a form of communion.
Yeah.
If you're getting together with these people to have a sacred experience, that you're with each other and you're creating this story that's one of a kind. There's no other like it on the planet. And to me, that, is best accomplished around a table.
Yeah, and like over the years, I've played RPGs for different reasons, and it definitely at a certain point, really, it was less about the game and more about just like, this is our excuse to get together on a weekly basis and hang out, right? Earlier on, it was really like real serious about the game and super important with the story, and everyone's got to be here. And at a certain point, like, we stopped caring about that stuff as much as just, the fellowship part of it.
Yeah, and it's interesting fellowship, because sometimes you have people in that game group that maybe you don't hang along. Maybe they're not coming to your barbecues or something.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not friends with each other always in that way, but it's like the game brings you together and you have this whole little social circles, and it's about, that and each other. It's very strange. It's one of the reasons I really love the hobby.
Yeah, like we've got, an almost weekly in-person game, and it's like, Ted will run something, I'll run something. Usually it's D&D. We have a group. We each have a group for that, and then we'll have a third game that is probably not D&D. And there's some crossover between those three groups, but mostly they're just different groups, because it's just hard to find other adults that are gonna like give up every Saturday night for infinity to play these games.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So we end up with monthly games, and that seems a lot easier for people to commit to. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but Cups in the chat wants to know if you have any opinions about Roll20 and One Bookshelf collabing, or are they merging? I saw something about it, but I just don't really pay attention to that stuff that much.
Yeah, I don't really pay attention to it much either. I know a lot of people like Roll20. I have an account with them, but I don't really play with it.
I do as well. And like the greatest thing to me was when I discovered the Beyond 20 extension, where it literally just lets me use Roll20 and D&D Beyond together, and I don't need to know anything about Roll20 and still take part in it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Wizards is going to buy that whole.
I don't know. Like,
are they going to build their own platform?
I was really concerned about what was going to happen with D&D Beyond for a while, because like them buying D&D Beyond was the only good outcome based on based on what I was seeing. They had done this weird survey where like you could only get so far depending on how you answered the questions, and eventually it would stop you or keep you going. And my understanding is you got to a certain point and it just started showing you stuff from Roll20, from D&D Beyond. I'm like, oh, they're gonna do their own thing, which is going to screw up a lot of things and make people really angry.
You think so?
Well, I thought so, but they ended up buying D&D Beyond. They acquired D&D Beyond, which that was the only outcome that was going to work, right? Had they did their own digital version of the books and D&D Beyond existed at the same time, that would have, that people would have came out with pitchforks and torches over that, and it would have proved everyone right that said, this is terrible. But I always liked D&D Beyond, because I also liked 4th edition when they did like the D&D Insider. I don't know if you use that or not at all, or if you remember that.
No.
Did you play 40?
I must say I did not.
That would be why it would not be very useful to you.
I'm not the biggest fan. I did like Minions.
Yeah.
Minions was good. That was the only version of D&D I didn't really care for. I know there are 4th edition fans.
Yeah.
I love you all. I love you all. It's you know.
You don't have to love them. No, so we played. I feel like we played 4E for like a year and a half, and like at first I was kind of into it, but then everything kind of felt like very samey. And then we started branching out. We started to branch out to other games more, and because they'd like gone so far from what D&D had been in the past, it was real easy for us to just not play D&D anymore. But it never really felt like it wasn't like a conscious choice of like we're leaving D&D. We just started playing a lot of Mutants and Masterminds at the time, and that system worked really good for a lot of different genres. And
yeah,
so
when you get older, you don't want to switch. You have limited time, like you mentioned. You play once a month. You have limited time when you're older, and you just want to get to the game. So a lot of times, generic systems or using one system that works.
So and like kind of like dovetailing into that, as I get older, the more and more I'm into rules light systems, and I just don't want a lot of crunch, and I don't want someone to hand me this 500-page book and be like, listen, we're gonna have a lot of fun and a great time, just read this first. I'm like, pass, hard pass.
Yeah, it's the life cycle of the gamer.
Yeah, I imagine like us, you get tons of people emailing you and be like, can you look at my system? And I'm like, maybe. If you hand me a 400-page book, I will never look at it. I can promise you. Or
I get a lot of that, and I can't look at them because I don't have the time. But sometimes people say, well, what do you think of this concept? And I have this knowledge of games, and I'm like, okay, RuneQuest does that. Yeah. James Bond 007 did that in 1983. Like, it's replacing hit points with, injury levels. So it's like whatever you think of with a role-playing game, it's all been done.
Yeah, like somebody wanted us to do a sponsorship with them. And so I met with them first, and I was like, honestly, I don't think you're really ready to bring this to market. And have you played any other games? Right? Like you're solving problems for a system that other people are already doing this. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't or you can't do that, but I think you should probably be like have market awareness.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you want to design games, you have to have read a lot of games. But as anyone gets older, as most people get older, you just can't be bothered with the crunchiness because you have limited time. There's limited time in your schedule, and you're just tired.
Yeah.
Give me the character, and I'll.
Yeah. I want to play, like, I'll play anything. I'm just like, I'll learn enough to make a character, or like, give me a pre-gen, and when we start playing, I'll tell you what I want to do and just tell me what I need to roll. Can I learn that way? And if I can't, I probably am not interested in that game.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Tell me what I need to roll. It's a real interesting concept. I don't know if you're familiar with Tracy Hickman's XDM, but they recently, Extreme Dungeon Mastery, he recently came out with another, they re-released it, they redid it, started. But essentially, that's the whole thing. He has a system in there, and it's like, you tell me what you want to do, I'll tell you what you need to roll on a D20.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the whole game.
It's perfect, right? Like, because I feel like it's really easy to get bogged down with a character sheet and all these options, which takes away from any narrative or anything interesting that can happen in a game. That's why like OSR games tend to be really good and a lot of fun to play, because there's not a bunch of stuff on a character sheet where you're like, can I do this or can I do this? There's nothing there, so you just make stuff up, and I think that just makes for better play.
Yeah, I had a whole episode called "Break Out of Your Character Sheet Prison," and it's just a hilarious aside. Most people are probably, you're like wondering where he is. He's always got that dungeon wall, which is a real set behind me. I'm currently out in a shed in my backyard, because I have people power washing my house. They've now just decided to power wash the shed.
It's not, the sound's not coming through though.
Okay. Like, why is this guy doing this? Anyway,
the noise gate on your mic must be really good.
break through character sheet prison. If you know, the thing about players is they want to know, what can I do?
Yeah.
So a game company will always oblige you by saying, this is what you can do. Here's a new book.
Yeah.
These are the things you can be. This is what you can do. And this is how the skill tree works. But then you get into this mindset that you can only do what's on a character sheet. And then you're not in the narrative anymore. And so that is the challenge. And I like character sheets.
I feel like systems like 3.5 that came about, is because a bunch of questions, well, not the only reason, but I feel like one of the reasons, like the progression is people played first edition and second edition, and there's all these questions. So the designers are like, well, what are the questions I always get asked about this system? And then they codified it all, right?
Yeah.
And in doing so, there's magic that gets lost from those previous systems. And I didn't recognize that, honestly, until 5th edition. I was like, oh, I've been missing this, and I didn't realize it. Now, I like the idea of rulings over rules. And even 5e is very crunchy as far as systems go, and it still has a lot of that you're going to be bound to this character sheet, unless you really consciously work to think outside of the character sheet, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And that's a thing. I enjoyed the 3rd edition. I thought it was an improvement over 2nd edition, but it after you get over to like 6th level or whatever, it got a little too crunchified, and that's when it started slowing down.
Well, really, I guess so. Like the thing about 1st edition and 2nd edition is there wasn't a lot of rules. It's just the rules that there were needlessly complex. It's like like part of designing games in the 80s, right, was like, let me make as many charts and tables as possible and show everybody how smart I am. Where, I think, in the aughts and later, we got into like, well, what are we really trying to do here? What is this game trying to do? How can we have fun at the table? And, and became less academic, if you would.
I think so. There are still a lot of charts today.
Yeah, it all depends on the system.
Yeah, but definitely that's my, because people always ask me, like, what are you? You like 5e? Do you like old school? You're an old school guy, and I'm my game's a Frankenstein mashup between those two things. And the thing that I didn't like about old school games, you have all these weird charts. Like, why do thieves need a whole separate chart? Why are some of them the things rolling on a d6, some of them on percentile dice? Like, why would you ever roll percentile dice in a game that uses a d20? I understand if you've got Cthulhu and we're going to go with percentile dice now, but why would you use it in an old school game when a 20-sided die can generate a number? Well, and it's faster to read.
I remember in 1st and 2nd edition, anytime the player wanted to try something that wasn't something a character might normally do, I just remember the GM being like, grab percentile dice. You've got a 5% or you got a 10% or something just like completely arbitrary or whatever. But that was just like how we played.
Yeah, it's so strange. It's so strange. So I admire with 5e, the basics. I love that basic game. I love the basic game. I love the essential set. How they strip it down and explain so clearly and cleanly, and in such a consistent way. And then you just build all other stuff on top of it. That's the great thing about 5e.
Yeah, Mage's Musing says, Professor DM, you are in part responsible for my delve into old school essentials. I'd curse you, but I'm having too much fun with it.
That's a great reprint. Old school essentials is, if people want to buy an old school game, I generally recommend them. It's just, the binding is great.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't play with all those rules, but I do have it, and it's great. The way they explain things, like I love Moldvay D&D, like that Moldvay with the Errol Otis cover.
Yeah.
Like I like to sleep with it under my pillow.
Yeah.
But even I have to, but reading old school essentials, it's better written.
Yeah.
It's clear they have the benefit of history. It's such a great product.
Have you played Morkborg?
Yes, I did. Yep.
What do you think of
Yeah.
that one?
I think it is old school D&D. It's basic D&D with an armor absorption system.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of armor class, everything is a 12, and then you have armor absorption. I think it's brilliant in its minimalist. What does this game want to do? As a matter of fact, it was problematic for me because it's what Deathbringer would have been.
Oh, those bastards.
Like, it's so close to like what I would play that I was thinking of, and I was just like a year or two behind. And of course, they have the graphics that are so cool. But I like that system, and I love the look of it. I know not everybody likes the look in the arrangement, but I do enjoy it, and yeah, that's my kind of game.
I also enjoy it. I've played a couple times. The only thing I don't enjoy about it is the layout, which I like. I know a lot of people like. It looks cool, but it's less. It looks more cool than it is functional. I'm old. I got old eyes, right? And I'm reading something, and then it's like you're tilting the book in order to keep reading it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got into a conversation with Hanker Fernell over at Runehammer, and we were talking, and he has very which he's got Viking Death Squad out now, which is really cool, and Index Card RPG. He's got Index Card RPGs by Modifius, and we were talking about the aesthetics of Mirkborg, and how it's actually pronounced Mirkborg is the Swedish pronunciation, and I always forget to do that too. But we were talking about it, and like it's not his thing, and I'm like, and he's got layout issues. That's I was like, how do you not like it? And he's like, no, the layout. He's very particular about how things should be laid out on the page.
Yeah, it looks cool. But like I said, it looks more cool than it is functional.
That's what he said. Yeah, that's what he said. And wants to play a game. This is games are meant to be played.
Yeah. So my friend Brian Colin did a hack to Morkborg and called Vast Grim, and it's a sci-fi horror version. And if Morkborg is fantasy meets death metal or heavy metal, his is punk meets sci-fi horror.
That's cool.
Yeah, so if you enjoy that and want a different genre, you might enjoy that as well.
Yeah, I bought the pirate version too.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Now I think there's like a cyborg version that's either out or coming out.
Like, why not? I'll buy any. I don't really read games, but I just like reading them. Or just flipping through them is fun for me.
So Doug wants to know, do you think complexity crunch is a factor in marketability, so it offers the same experience regardless of who's involved?
That's a brilliant question. That's a brilliant question. That was going to be one of the ideas for a video I have that I'm writing now. I was actually going to tackle that, and I'm glad you asked it, because it's the type of video, if I put it out, no one will watch it. Because it's like, how do you make that into a thumbnail?
Yeah.
You're putting Captain Crunch. Crunch is all about selling games. That's what it's about. That's the function of it. If you have like Easy D6, right? Easy D6, essentially you got an advantage system. Do you know how to do something? Are you really good at it? You got advantage while rolling. You don't have ability scores. You just have advantage. Now you could do that with D&D easily, because those ability score bonuses really aren't that much of a bonus. You could give double advantage for characters level 1 to 5, triple advantage to characters 6 to 10, and you could crunch that into just a minimalist system. But a system like that wouldn't sell books. You know, it's the minutia. It's that I'm going to get +1 here, and I'm going to get +1 there, and this beat gives me +1 in this situation. That crunch, that is what sell books. So it's great to sell books.
When you're in the business of selling books, yes, absolutely.
And Hasbro is, and I salute them. Like they've got a basic system which is super playable. Then if you want more, it's like buying a spoiler for your car. You don't need it.
Yeah.
But you can get, you know, Tasha's Cauldron, everything, and you just put it on there. You know, and that's the brilliance of 5e in terms of product. You know, it is built to sell games.
So I feel like what you mentioned, like I feel like Shadow of the Demon Lord kind of straddles that, right? Where you have the ability score bonuses and the advantage disadvantage kind of mechanic with the boons and banes.
Yeah. Shadow of the Demon Lord is real interesting because it's Robert Schwab who worked on 5th edition, and it incorporates, in my opinion, a brilliant idea with background skills, which other games like Black Hack have used. What's your background? Are you a sailor? Anytime you do something, you want to navigate, steer the ship, fish, tie a knot, any sailor things, you get a boon. You know, that's how skills are done. That's brilliant. And also, he's got the idea of proficiency dice, which I know from watching Nerdarchy, you weren't the best fan of because you're right, because you think the dice are against you.
Yeah, oh yeah, the dice hate me personally.
But proficiency dice, which is actually in 5e in the second half of the Dungeon Master's Guide, that proficiency dice, that's kind of in Shadow of the Demon Lord as well. So Robert Schwab took a lot of cool ideas from 5th edition, mixed it with Warhammer, and it's mind-blowing art in that game. That game is some great looking art. But yes, Shadow of the Demon Lord is like up that alley.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for the super chat, Zytech. Dave, I kickstarted Nerdarchy's book and can't wait for Professor Dungeon Master's book. Thanks for that. Yeah, like I love the way that you progress through that game. Like it starts with very minimalistic choices, and it's like you pick your ancestry, and then you pick a couple professions, and the professions don't actually mechanically mean anything unless you start playing and the GM decides they mean something.
Yeah.
You know, like you could be like, oh, I'm a hunter, so can I, you know, does that help me track? And you could be like, no, only if you're tracking deer. You don't know how to track people or whatever, right? But it's very like arbitrary like that. But I also I kind of like that.
Yeah, it's a compromise. It's a compromise between those two things.
But then as you progress through and also the game is like very defined. It's like you will play 11 sessions. That's it. The game is then over.
Yeah, it's interesting that Mercury and Shadow of the Demon Lord, right? They kind of hit over the last time. It's last 10 years. It's something about the apocalyptic gaming. That,
yeah.
They're a lot of fun. They're really fantastic looking, you know.
The D&D game I'm running currently is called Under the Dome, and it's a post-apocalyptic world's been ravaged by chaos magic, and really the main reason why we're playing this game is just because I wanted to do motorcycle gangs in a D&D game, and we just took the war machines from Descent into Avernus and just threw them in, and we're like, well, how do we make these motorcycle gangs make sense in this D&D setting? You know, so we went with this like post-apocalyptic world where civilization is limited to under these magical domes, and they have to go out into the world to scavenge for different resources, and they harvest these crystals that store they is left behind by these chaos magic storms. They turn that into grind, and that's what powers their vehicles and their motorcycles. So it's kind of like a light industrial arcana punk kind of setting. But ultimately, I just wanted motorcycle gangs.
You know, and you say you used the 5th edition, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the brilliance of that system, is it can be generic. You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, like just like Pathfinder did Starfinder, you know, they could do a D&D in space. They could do like back in the day when we were youngsters, you had Gamma World and Star Frontiers, but I never knew why they didn't use the same system.
Yeah.
For that stuff. But I don't, you know, they could expand by just doing that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the easiest thing. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that like that Wizards, instead of like, because they'd been talking about doing all their properties from Hasbro for a long time before they finally licensed it out to Renegade. I'm like, why didn't they just do it in-house and make these and just make them 5e systems? Now they're kind of 5e, but I don't think exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that they feel that people who are outside their system, are, you know, you get more creative stuff. My impression is that Wizards is good at, and this is what happens with anything that's created. The stages, you have a creator who creates it. You know, you get this explosive growth, and then it gets bought by a large corporation, and what they do well is curate it. You know, I think that Wizards curates Dungeons & Dragons. That's why I think the next edition will be very similar. You know, because they're like, they curate Monopoly. You know, they get it in the public consciousness and they mass produce it, and they do a great job at doing that, of making sure that everybody knows what this product is. But the more innovative stuff, you know, just like Disney with Star Wars, you know.
Yeah.
But the most innovative stuff is by somebody who is not in that system anymore, like, or not anymore, but they're thinking of original things. That's what I think.
And do you think that's by intent, or just kind of like the way it works? Like,
probably the nature of things.
Yeah. Is it that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are thinking, oh, it'll be more creative if we send it out there, or no, it's just easier for us to charge licensing?
There's that too. there's that too, but it's probably they don't have the person power to do that.
Yeah.
Right. They only have about 12 designers working on Dungeons & Dragons. So if you were going to create a whole new line or a new game, let's say we're going to do a sci-fi game or an espionage game, well, you need a whole new 3 or 4 new designers to work on that. Better you subcontract that out.
So Eric wants to know, how has having a YouTube channel changed your regular games?
Ooh, that's a brilliant question. I have to say, when I tape sessions, I'm not taping tomorrow's sessions. It definitely changes the way people play the game. We sit differently.
Yeah.
We sit differently, like when we're taping it. I tell people you can't eat. You can't eat because like the microphone will pick up the crunches of their ice, chewing ice and stuff. But the YouTube channel, aside from that, of the practical thing, because I tape games and put them up on Patreon. I think the YouTube channel has made my games at home a lot better because it forces me to think about all the concepts that I think about, and then I implement them. And it's a symbiotic relationship, which is why, at the beginning you ask, like, how many times do you run D&D? Like, how many groups do you have? I got 5 groups going. By running games, it creates I think, oh, that would make a good episode of Dungeon Craft. And then I take whatever I do in Dungeon Craft and apply it to the next game. Like I had a game last summer I ran for a friend, and it was her my friend Kerry wanted to recommended I start the channel. She was playing with a friend of hers who never played D&D before, but wanted to know what it was all about. And Kerry's daughter was 14. So the three of them played an old school game, and we went through the caves of chaos, right? With the like basic D&D. They had a total party kill in the first 15 minutes. Then they went back because I have them make up backup characters.
Yeah.
And they play, and they go into the Cobalt layer, and it became a very in mapping and torches became very important because they were all humans. And I'm rolling for the torches to see how long the torches, will last, because a real torch lasts between 10 and 30 minutes. And they get to the final room, they kill the Cobalt King, and they said, I said, all right, you have the treasure. And they said, we want to search the room for other treasure. Are there secret doors? And I said, well, just so you know, you only have 2 torches. You're gonna have a tough time getting back. Like you can be plunged into darkness. There's still monsters around. And they said, no, we want to push it.
Yeah.
And then it came to them mapping and making decisions, and that led to them barely escaping the dungeon in time before their torch went out. To cheers and elation. And I thought, well, that would make a great episode of Dungeon Craft. And then ever since then, I've been more cognizant of the torches and mapping. So I take what I do in my own videos and apply it to my next game, and it just makes it better in the symbiotic relationship. So it's been both good, it's great for my personal game.
Yeah, I find like I was never plugged into the D&D communities or RPG communities online before becoming a content creator the way we are now. And that introduces you to a lot of different concepts and ideas that maybe you didn't think about before, because we would just play our games in a bubble and we work on the conventions. We always managed to have, a regular group to play with. That dynamic may have changed over the years, but, more or less there was always, players. So we didn't really have to look further. But also, like, your games will progress and change much slower in that environment. There's not a lot of growth. So I feel like by plugging into the internet has really made us expand, how we play the game.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I agree. That's one of the best things you could do is you go to conventions and play games you didn't play with people you never played with before, and you realize, oh, this would be pretty cool.
I'd never been to a convention other than like maybe a Comic-Con in Philadelphia with my dad when I was a kid before doing Nerdarchy. So, and even then, even Ted would do some conventions, but they weren't gaming conventions.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hold on.
Fries are done.
I don't know how to shut that off. Let's see. Let's unmute this. All right. I always went to conventions like back at Gen Con in the late 80s. I was going, and I always came back with cool ideas. I was like, I could steal this idea. That's the best thing about the internet and conventions.
Yeah.
And getting people online.
Do you have a favorite convention?
Well, I was a guest at Origins, so they're my favorite now.
It just changed, yeah.
Gen Con, I'm looking forward to Gen Con. My kids like Gen Con better. I had said to my son, hey, I'm going to be a guest at Origins. You want to go? And he's like, no, I want to go to Gen Con.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he considers that as the convention because my kids went there when they were very young.
Okay.
So they have a perspective of like everything else is not as big, and they're at that age where bigger is good.
Yeah.
Teenagers, bigger is good. So I will say I enjoy going to Gen Con with my children because there are so many happy memories there that they're happy. Everyone's happy.
Will you be
So
be hitting PAX Unplugged?
I will be. I missed you there last time, but not this time if you're going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we always hit that one for. I mean, that's right in our backyard. We film in Woodbury, and that's like, I don't know, 15 minutes from the bridge. So.
Yeah, I'm on tour, so I'm going to Gen Con. I'm going to Jeff Con, which used to be Mace. That's in North Carolina. I'm going to be at PAX. My players just texted me yesterday.
Yeah.
Are we going to PAX? Because last year I just took them as the person that asked about how has it changed my game. Because I put my players on Patreon so they contribute to the channel's success, my Patreon success. I just took them all to PAX. Like I just I'll pick up your meals in hotels and stuff like that. Oh, nice.
That's an expensive trip.
It was, but they're I gotta have tax write-offs too.
Yeah.
So we had a great time. PAX was great. That's a great convention, PAX Unplugged.
Best convention for food, hands down.
Yeah, we're probably a tangent. Did you go to that little market?
Yeah, I've been in there, but I actually prefer the restaurants around more so than the market. The market's nice, but it's a little bit crowded for my taste.
It is crowded. Yeah. They had Amish people making pretzel hot dogs, like it's a giant pig in a blanket. It was like one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I always talk about this when I talk about PAX Unplugged, but I just love the fact that because you're in Philadelphia, so you can get any kind of food you want, and you can pay super high prices or dirt cheap. It just runs the gambit. Where you go to Indy and it's like they're really good restaurants are I would say. They're like a Philadelphia okay restaurant, right? Especially when you can, especially for the price. It's nice in Indy because they all are themed and they get on board with the Gen Con thing. But I don't think I just don't think it compares to Philadelphia for the food scene. And I'm a fat guy; I like to eat. So
Origins was good. The food was very good at Origins.
Origins, I went with my wife, and we found this small hole in the wall taco place, and it was so good.
Yeah, it was. I like it. I think my wife liked Origins better.
Yeah.
Gen Con, but PAX is great because then we have my kids and all our friends that we normally game with.
I know Jacob from XP to Level 3 was I don't like Philadelphia. I don't like the city. It's dirty. It's not clean like Indianapolis. I'm like, that's because you haven't been to a real city, kid. If you don't have to step around the bum peeing on the side of a wall, you're not in a city.
Well, I'm not going to touch that one. I want to make. You can say that you're from Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia adjacent, South Jersey. It's close. But yeah, it's like I said, it happens to be our home con, and it is right now my favorite one for food anyway. But they're all great. Going to Gen Con is like your kids say, it's huge. It's the whole city turns out for this event. But all the conventions anymore is just an excuse to go see my internet friends, really.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm glad about getting back to these conventions, because that's going to happen. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are going to Gen Con on my internet friends.
Okay.
But the idea that, but a few of them do, and I meet them. That's one of the best things about going to conventions is, and then one of the things that was bad about my timing, my show got popular when there were no conventions.
Yeah.
So it was oh, I'm Professor Dungeon Master, and I could meet DM Scotty, but there's no place to meet him.
Yeah. Well, now you're gonna go and get swarmed.
We'll see. I don't know. It's pretty light at Origins. It's pretty light turnout.
Yeah.
Gen Con, I am going to have a seminar. People have been asking about that. They just emailed me today.
Yeah. What are you doing?
It's Professor Dungeon Master Live. I'll talk about 30 minutes and answer 30 minutes of questions, and that's all the time that I was given.
Okay.
But I was apparently lucky to get it at 10 a.m. on Saturday, so I'll be there for that, which will be cool because that's the that's sort of you dream. It's like a musician playing Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
I have a seminar at Gen Con now. Like, that's what it's like.
You made it. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm not going to Gen Con. I mean, except for when they didn't have it, since I started going. Like, my first Gen Con was Gen Con 50. And then, like, I guess, like, we had gone last year, me and the wife. I was just, like, tired of being cooped up. And I'm like, that's it, we're going. We're all vaccinated. Let's go. And oddly enough, like, I did Gen Con. I did PAX Unplugged. No plague, fine. One of the kids brings it home, like, after that. So, like, we're around all these people, nothing. And it's like one of my kids just brings it home. So,
yeah,
children are plague rats.
I'm missing, I'm missing, last year, Ben from Questing Beast, like, hit me up and he's like, hey, you want to get like an Airbnb together? And I was like, I'm not going to go this year. Yeah. And then so I contacted him and I'm like, I'm going to Gen Con. Are we going to see each other? He was like, no, I'm not going this year.
Just missing.
Till it comes back. You know, I think there's it's interesting. I think maybe smaller conventions seem to be doing better. I mean, I don't know. I think PAX, because you've been to a lot of them, it was less than in previous years, right?
It was. And, like, so, like, the way PAX did it last year and the way Gen Con did it last year were completely different. Gen Con took all their floor space and just pushed it in, right? Where PAX took the same amount of floor space and just spread everything out, which was really nice because, like, anyone that's been to a busy con, like, you're constantly bumping against people. Someone turns with a backpack, you got to dodge. Where, like, at the last PAX Unplugged, there was just so much room, and they might do, like, a couple booths together, and then there would be no booth, and then kind of, like, spaced it out. Seemed like very intentional. Whereas Gen Con, it seemed like they were trying to make you feel like you were still at Gen Con, which is kind of like defeats the purpose of having the lower capacity.
Yeah.
So
I could see that, though, because they probably don't want pictures circulating with empty aisles at Gen Con.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think people would understand and be like, oh, I think a lot of people would appreciate the extra room. And also, if you've ever been to a convention and been in the mob, like, you'd appreciate being like, oh, I don't have to stand over top of the person next to me. And that's like normal, not even with, any of the other circumstances going on.
Yeah.
So, well, we are just past the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. And everyone, thanks so much for helping Dungeon Craft cross 90,000 subscribers. And Deathbringer and Eldritch Hack are on Drive Through RPG right now, and they're doing well. So thanks for all the support.
So you can check those out. There's links in the description to go find Professor Dungeon Master as well. And go look for him at Gen Con. So until next time, stay nerdy.